Good evening, everyone. This week's Parsha is Parshas Vayeshev Tavshin Pei Gimel. We are going to be starting in Parak Lamazayin, chapter 37, Pasuk Chav Hey, verse 25. Chapter 37, Pasuk Chav Hey, verse 25. Now, at this point of time in the Parsha, the brothers have decided that they're getting rid of Yosef, and they threw him into a pit. And Pasuk Chav Hey, verse 25 reads, Vayeshvu le'achalechem. They sat down to eat bread. Vayisu eineim vayiru. They lifted their eyes and they saw. V'nei archas yishmaelim ba'am migilad. Behold, a caravan of Ishmaelites was coming from Gilad. U'gemarleihem nois'im, and their camels were carrying nechais utzri v'loit. The article translates nechais utzri v'loit as spices, balsam, and lotus. Holchem laharid Mitzrayim, going to bring down to Egypt. Vayomer Yehuda alechav. So then Yehuda, the brother Yehuda, said to his brothers, what gain will we have if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Let's go and sell him to the Ishmaelites, and our hand does not have to be on him. Meaning, instead of we killing him, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. Let's sell him as a slave. They'll take him away. I'll be rid of him that way. Okay. Now, what I want to focus on is the fact that the Torah points out that when it says that they saw this caravan of Ishmaelites, the Torah tells us what they were carrying. They were carrying these spices, balsam, lotus. All these things are spices, things that give off a nice fragrance. Why does the Torah tell us what they were carrying? What's that relevant to? Why is it important for us to know? So Rashi brings down, and this is actually a medrash, Lama Persa Makasavis Masam. Why does the Torah let us know what they were carrying? And the answer is Loidiamat and Scharin Shal Tzadikim, to let us know the reward of the righteous. Shein Darkim Shal Arviyim Laseis Elanef Vitrin Sharechan Ra. Typically, these Ishmaelites would be carrying these types of oils that have a very bad smell to them. They have a very foul odor. But in this case, they landed up carrying spices, things that smell good, that you shouldn't be damaged, you shouldn't be affected by the bad smell. So the Torah is telling us that something unusual took place here. Typically, Ishmaelites carry things that smell bad. And in this case, for the sake of Yosef, what landed up being is that these Ishmaelites were carrying fragrant things that smelled good, so that Yosef should not have to be damaged or suffer through with the bad smell. So that's what Torah is pointing out. The Torah is pointing out that they were carrying something typically that they don't carry, because since this group of Ishmaelites were taking Yosef, so that Yosef shouldn't have to experience the bad smell of the things they typically trade in. These Ishmaelites were trading in something fragrant so that Yosef shouldn't have to suffer from the smell. All right. So, interesting explanation as to why the Torah tells us this. And it's showing us how Hashem made sure that Yosef should not have to suffer through the bad smell. He should be able to have the good smell. Because as the Gemara said, Yosef was a tzaddik. Yosef was a great person. Whatever the explanations are as to why he was sold, at the end of the day, Yosef was a righteous person. And the Torah is showing us the reward to the righteous, that Yosef should not have to suffer the bad smell. These Ishmaelites were carrying things that typically don't. This is what Hashem had orchestrated for Yosef's sake. Now, the question that's asked on this Rashi, on this Medrash, is the following. If we put ourselves in Yosef's shoes, it would seem that Yosef couldn't care less what things smell like. In this situation where Yosef was now taken by his brothers, thrown into a pit, now being sold into oblivion as a slave, Yosef, things are very, very bleak. Things are very dark. Does it really make a difference to Yosef how things smell? Is it really going to make a difference to him? If we would stop Yosef and say, Yosef, you smell that? Doesn't it smell good in here? What would he say to you? Who cares? That's what I worry about now. That's what I worry about. Right now, everything is so he's being lost. He's being taken into oblivion. This is going to make a difference to him. There's a question that's asked on this medrash. Now, what's interesting to note is I think at one point I would have understood this medrash to say that, look, Yosef is in somehow or another, in some form or another, is in a form being punished in a certain way. And the fact that Hashem makes sure that he should have a pleasant smelling trip is a way of showing that Hashem is always very exact in what he measures. What a person deserves, Hashem gives them, and what a person deserves, Hashem doesn't give them. Even if Yosef, for some reason, deserves to be going through the suffering of being sold, being taken away from his father and from his homeland, and being taken to who knows where, nonetheless, that if he didn't deserve to have to suffer through bad smelling, Hashem makes sure that he doesn't have to go through it. But to me, that explanation is problematic because Rashi's the introduction to the answer is this is teaching the reward of the righteous. If the issue is that Hashem is only giving a person what they deserve, that's not reserved only for the righteous, that's for everyone. What is unique here about what's happening to Yosef as a righteous person? It was just about he doesn't deserve this suffering. So the explanation that I have seen is the following. And that is, again, putting ourselves in Yosef's shoes, where he's suffering so much, and everything seems very dark and very bleak. Now, he could have an attitude of giving up on everything and really not caring about anything that's happening about him because he's so down and out about his situation. But if Yosef understands that this is what Hashem wants, if Yosef understands that this is happening because Hashem wants this to happen, he may not understand why, but he understands that this is happening from Hashem. So then Yosef's whole focus as a tzaddik, as a righteous person, is that he understands that this is what Hashem is doing to him. And therefore, he's going to be alert and awake to the entire situation around him. He's not just going to let it go and who cares. This is what Hashem wants. And if this is what Hashem wants, Yosef is going to be focused on this situation. So here he's in a situation being taken down by Ishmaelites to Egypt, being taken, as I said, into oblivion, and he smells something like really good. He smells these fragrant things. And Yosef's aware that these Ishmaelites typically deal in things that don't smell good. So why all of a sudden now are they carrying things that are good? What is it here that Hashem has orchestrated that now these Ishmaelites should be carrying things they typically don't carry? And Yosef understands that because that's what's happening here, what Hashem is orchestrating here is a message to him. And the message is that as bad as things are, I'm still here with you. I haven't abandoned you. I'm here. I'm still watching over you. There's a plan for all this. There's a reason for all this. And I'm letting you realize that, and I'm giving you chizuk. I'm strengthening you. I'm encouraging you. I'm letting you see I'm still here. Yosef, if Yosef was the kind of person who just gave up and just was despondent and gave up on everything, I don't know if this kind of good smell would have made a difference to him. But it makes a difference to him because he's not despondent. He hasn't given up. He doesn't think, he knows this is what Hashem wants. This is what Hashem is doing. And therefore, he is open. He's alert. He's focused on what's happening around him. He knows this is all from Hashem. And if he knows it's all from Hashem, he now takes notice of this fragrance, which is odd for the situation. And he realizes is that this oddity of these Ishmaelites carrying what they typically don't carry is a message to him. That's also orchestrated from Hashem. That is orchestrated from Hashem, that this unusual thing. And the unusual thing is orchestrated as a message. He understands it's a message. He understands Hashem is telling him that even in this bleak darkness, I'm here with you. I still love you. I'm watching over you. I am here. That's the reward of the righteous. The reward of the righteous is that Yosef, that Yosef shouldn't be damaged from this fragrance. It's a reward for the righteous because it's meant for the righteous. Hashem sends the message for them to be able to see that he's still there with them. And it doesn't mean Hashem doesn't do it for all of us. But for the righteous person, Hashem especially makes sure for him to realize that he's there with him. Because if you are paying attention, and not just paying attention, if you care for what's going on around you, and you understand that everything is being orchestrated from Hashem, then this fact, that what Vayeshev is experiencing, that now these fragrant things are being carried by Ishmaelites who typically don't carry these kinds of things, that now becomes a strong sign from Hashem. I'm here with you. I'm not throwing you away. I'm not abandoning you. Yes, Hashem is orchestrating. Well, is he abandoning? Hashem lets the righteous know clearly he's not abandoning. He's there. He strengthens them to be able to get through the difficult situation. Now, the message for us, I believe, is the fact that, yes, this is something maybe as it's called a reward to the righteous, in the sense that the sign is so strong for them to realize it. But it's really meant to be a message for all of us, is that Hashem sends us these messages that we should understand that even when things don't seem to be working out properly, even when things seem to be going wrong, there are still those messages there that to let us know that he's with us. And in order to be able to see these messages, we have to be focused in the sense that we're focused on the fact that whatever is happening to us is orchestrated from Hashem. And if things are good, and we say it seems like things are bad, and that Hashem has abandoned us, Hashem is kind of in some way giving up on us. But if we look around and we're focused on what else Hashem is doing for us, at the same time that things aren't going so great, well, in other things, Hashem is still showing us great kindness. If looking at life as a whole with its challenges and its difficult times that make us feel lost and feel abandoned, if we're also focusing on the good things that we understand Hashem orchestrates and brings to us, then we don't just judge everything by the bad. We take in the whole picture and we see Hashem does this and Hashem does his kindnesses to us. If Hashem is still doing the kindnesses for us, that means he's not abandoning us. He's still there. He's watching over us. And the challenges and difficult times are all part of what Hashem has for us. In a different example I would use for this is I one time heard a story from a person who was at one point in time a philosophy student, I think in the Netherlands, I think it was, and he met a Holocaust survivor. And he asked the Holocaust survivor, after all you've experienced, how can you still believe in God? Or how do you still believe in God? And the survivor's response was, what do you mean? He was at my side the whole time. What does that mean? Now, again, some people will, different people, for whatever reason, look at things in a different way. But this person was the kind of person who with all the destruction and tragedy and cruelty that was happening around them, they still looked at themselves and they say, how am I surviving? How is it possible that I've survived? How is it possible that I got out of this and I got out of that? If you take it for granted, or you just say it's chance, then okay. But if the point is, if you understand Hashem is the one who runs everything, and even so then even in a time of darkness, a person is going to say to themselves, how is it that I got through it? This survivor was looking at the whole picture of what she went through, and she said, how was it possible I could survive if not for the fact that God was there? Not everybody looked at it like that. Why she looked at it more than other people didn't look at it that way, I don't know. But her outlook was that she didn't take for granted. She didn't look at it as just as chance of the fact that she was surviving, even in all the darkness, in all the cruelty that she experienced. But she still was able to say, but look at all these things. Look at how I survived. It has to be Hashem. Because if you look at the whole picture and you're focused not just on the negativity, but you're focused on everything that's happening around and not taking it for granted, those kindnesses that you recognize from Hashem, especially if you see them in a dark time, you see them as signs to say that Hashem says, I'm here for you. I'm still here. Don't think I'm not here. I'm orchestrating this. I'm here for you. I love you. I'm watching over you. And that's what Yosef was doing. So if Yosef is just despondent and just giving up, who cares what it smells like? But if Yosef has not, but Yosef, who is aware that this is all coming from Hashem, and that's what he's aware of, that's what he's focused on, that's how he's looking at the picture. Again, it's pretty bleak, it's pretty dark. It's hard to accept what Hashem wants. It lends itself to think that Hashem has abandoned me. But now because Yosef is aware, Yosef is focused on the fact that this all comes from Hashem, he now can take notice and appreciate what this unique smell here is. And it makes a difference for him because he understands that this unique smell that shouldn't be here is orchestrated by Hashem. For what purpose? To show him that he's still there and that Hashem is watching over him and taking care of him. That was the point here of Yosef experiencing these fragrant things even in his darkest time, and why it would and could make a difference to him. Okay, that's number one. Want to say something, Akari?
No, I can say a lot of things, but you can continue.
You want to make a comment about this? We just said?
All his brothers also righteous person.
But we're not going to get now into why they did what they did. We're just focusing on this thing. That's a whole separate discussion. Why his brothers did what they did.
For young boys, it's very difficult to have kind of two different messages. One message is his brother want to kill him.
Right.
There is very small message. Is kind of nice smell. How to balance and so.
Well, we know that Yosef was even at a young age was a very great person.
No, but his brother also was
good. But I'm just saying, but in his situation, whatever it is, for him to be, he can still go ahead and see the signs that Hashem is sending him to help him be strong. So yes, his brothers sold him. That's definitely a big challenge. But if with it all, and clearly he's meant to have a very big challenge. He's meant to go through this for some reason. But noticing that fragrance and being focused on what's happening around him allows him to see this small but significant message from Hashem.
But what tells he was a great person at this age?
But that's it again. Rashi brings down when it says Ben Zekunim that he was a son of Yaakov's old age, and it says Yaakov loved Yosef from all the brothers. So Rashi brings down there because of the fact that Yosef was his prize student.
It's not because he is too small boy.
Not only that, it also had to do with the fact of what kind of special young boy he was.
But all his behavior.
Again, we're to a whole different part of the Parsha. Okay. Next. All right. So Yosef is taken down to Egypt, and it says how they took his coat and they made it look like he was killed by a wild animal and sold it to Yaakov. Yaakov thought that Yosef was devoured by a wild animal. Really, he was taken down to Egypt. And at the end of this chapter 37, it says, eventually, Yosef was brought down to Egypt and sold there to a man named Potiphar. Now, right after the Torah ends with that story, in Parak Lamazai, chapter 37, in Parak Lamachez, chapter 38, it gets into a very controversial story. The story of Yehuda and Tamar. The story where Yehuda leaves his brothers, marries a woman, has 3 sons, takes a wife for his eldest son. Her name was Tamar. Onan was wicked in the eyes of Hashem. He died. Onan was told to marry his brother's wife. Er was the first son. Onan was the second son, who again acted wickedly in the eyes of Hashem. Therefore, he died. Yehuda didn't really know why they were dying, but the fact that this woman had already been married to 2 of his sons and both of them had died, to him that already was a sign that she shouldn't marry his 3rd son. And he said to Tamar, "Go back to your father's home, and when my 3rd son Shelah becomes old enough, he'll marry you." Clearly, there was something going on here about keeping her in the family. And the commentaries say that it's similar to the concept of Yibum, that when a brother dies without children, that his brother, according to Torah law, is supposed to marry his brother's wife. Through that, it perpetuates the memory of the deceased brother. This is not something that we practice nowadays in the sense of marriage. We do the process called chalitza, which actually frees the woman from such a marriage. But although there was no actual mitzvah of Yibum at this point of time, nonetheless, there was an understanding of what marrying the deceased brother or having this woman remain in the family, what it did in regard to perpetuating the memory of the brothers that died. Okay, now she goes ahead and he sends her back to her father, and she realizes, she sees that nothing's happening. Time's already passing. Shayla should be old enough, and she should be marrying Shayla. So it's pretty clear to her that Yehuda is not interested in her marrying. But as the commentaries point out, Tamar understands that this is not just about being married. She was meant to be the one to have to bring out children from Yehuda's family that would be part of the Jewish people. She understood there was a destiny here in being married and bringing out children in Yehuda's family, and therefore she did something very desperate. Torah tells us she disguised herself, so to speak, as a prostitute. She waited on the way. Yehuda saw her. Yehuda Yehuda propositioned her, and before she agreed to what Yehuda wanted, she asked, there's payment for this, and she said, I need some security to make sure you're going to pay me. Yehuda left 3 objects of his with her. He cohabited with her. He made her pregnant. She went back to her father without anybody knowing what happened. Now, including Yehuda, he didn't know who it was. Eventually, people saw she was pregnant, and people thought that if she became pregnant when and she's not married. How'd she become pregnant? And she's supposed to be staying in the family of Yehuda. That was tantamount to adultery, and therefore they were going to kill her for it. And as she's being taken out to be killed, she sends a message to Yehuda: whoever is the owner of these 3 things, that is the father of the child that I'm carrying. And she says the words. If we look in again, this is chapter 38, and we look at in pasuk Chav Hey, pasuk 25. He mutzeis, she was being taken out. And she sent a message to her father-in-law saying, Liish asher elaloi, the man who owns these things, meaning the 3 objects that she got from Yehuda, Anoichi hara, I have become pregnant too. Okay. And she says to Yehuda, do you recognize this? Or recognize, please, who's the owner of these things? And Yehuda admits that it was from him. He admits it was from him. Okay. That's chapter 38. Then the next chapter, Lamites 39, again on this same page, Parak Lamites, chapter 39, Pasuk Aleph, verse 1, the Vayeshev Mitzrayim, and Yosef was taken down to Egypt. Now, Rashi points out, we know that Yosef was taken down to Egypt. That's what happened at the end of chapter 37. But the Torah now is repeating Yosef taking down to Egypt, because since the story of Yosef was interrupted with the story of Yehuda and Tamar, so now the Torah gets back to Yosef and starts all over again, so to speak. The question is, though, why is the story of Yehuda and Tamar interjected in the middle of the story of Yosef? What's the point of that? Why does it interrupt the story of Yosef? So Rashi brings down something very, very interesting. Rashi brings down that the reason why the Torah interjected this is because the Torah wants to talk about the story of Tamar next to the next episode of Yosef. The next episode of Yosef is that Yosef was sold to a man named Potiphar, and Potiphar's wife took a liking to Yosef, and she tried to seduce him. And Yosef, pushed back, and then and then there's the rest of the story there. So Rashi brings down from the Medrash that the Torah wants to bring together these 2 stories to compare Tamar and Potiphar's wife. That's the point of bringing this in. We want to compare them. How do we want to compare them? What do we want to compare them in what way? So Rashi brings down, Tamar clearly was sincere in what she did. She wasn't doing it just to be with a man. She was doing it because she understood there's a destiny here, and she wanted to be, and she felt that she was destined to be part of it. And if Yehuda is not going to allow her to be part of it, she's going to do whatever she can to be part of it. She and if you look in all sources, Tamar is not criticized for what she did, because she did it l'shem shemaim. She did it for the sake of heaven. She was sincere. Just like Tamar was sincere, believe it or not, the wife of Potiphar was sincere. She also had intentions. She also had good intentions in what she was doing. She wasn't just doing it because she liked Yosef. She also understood there was a destiny here. Because as Rashi brings down, she saw it in the stars. She had the ability. There was a certain wisdom being able to see into the future, and she saw in the future that Yosef is going to have children from her family. Yosef is going to have children from her family. Now, it wasn't clear, was it her daughter? And eventually it was her daughter. But she saw this in her future, that Yosef is meant to have children from her family. She assumed it was her, and that's why she went after Yosef. She also understood the destiny here. She was also sincere in why she did it. So by now putting together these two stories next to each other, by interjecting the story of Yehuda and Tamar into the story of Yosef, and then having the part of Yosef's story with Potiphar's wife follow, that tells us, put these two things together and compare them. Tamar was sincere. She was sincere in what she was doing. She wasn't just doing it to be sinful. She was sincere in why she was doing it. She had a good reason to do it. And the wife Potiphar was the same. Now the question is, what's the point of knowing that? At the end, Potiphar's wife, when she failed to get Yosef to do what she wanted, what did she do to him? She accused him she accused him falsely, and she got him thrown into the dungeon. What's the point of being pointed out that she also meant l'shem shemaim? She was sincere to begin with too. What's the point of that? So Rabbi Yochanan Lubavitch explains that the point is to teach us is that there are a lot of times where we get involved in something and we have good intentions. We have good intentions of why we're getting involved. And since we have good intentions, it's a mitzvah, we want to be helpful, we want to contribute, want to do what's right. So we think because of that, since we're starting with good intentions, that we kind of can let our guard down about making sure we continue being sincere. We think that if we start sincere, we're going to stay sincere. But the problem is you can start sincere, and then when trouble begins, meaning you're starting sincere, you have plans, you're sincere about those plans. And now, for some reason, there's something in the way of those plans being fulfilled. It's possible that that's going to take you, that's going to steer you away from your sincerity. Take a look at these two women. Tamar starts off sincere. And what's about to happen to her? She's about to be burned. Here it is. She's sincere. She's got her plans. She's sincere, and it's about to fail. It's about to go wrong. It's the perfect time for her now to go ahead and say, "You know who did this to me, Yehuda?" But it's clear that she didn't do that. When she went ahead and sent those things that were his, she gave him the chance to either say yes or no. And the Talmud says that from Tamar we learn that it's better to have yourself thrown into a fire than to embarrass someone. Although her plans, that again she started off l'shem shemayim, were now seemingly being disrupted, they were being blocked. She still stayed sincere. She still stayed in doing the right thing. She didn't now all of a sudden turn over and start acting in the wrong way. Things aren't working out. That's a perfect time for things to go haywire, because look what happened by the wife of Potiphar. She meant to be sincere, and Yosef's not cooperating. That means that her plans are being disrupted. Her sincere plans are being disrupted. So what happens to her? She's not acting sincerely anymore. Now she's going after Yosef. She wants to get Yosef. She wants to take revenge at Yosef. So even though here these two women both started off from the same point, but when one faced the obstacles, she stayed sincere. She stayed doing what she knew was the right thing. She started off wanting to do the right thing, and she continued doing the right thing. While the wife Potiphar started off doing the right thing, but when things didn't go her way, she now went and started doing the wrong thing. Because when you start off sincere, there's no guarantees you're going to stay sincere. And the way I understand this is is, you can start off doing something sincere, but at the same time that you're starting sincere, you may feel this is my thing. So let's give an example. People come together, they meet, they have an organization, they're a board, and they come together to do good things. Okay? And now there's an argument how to do things. So here are a bunch of people who started off all coming to do what's right, all l'shem shamayim, all for the sake of heaven, all for doing a mitzvah. Now they start disagreeing, and what happens? They start insulting each other and being angry at each other. Well, what happened? You started off with doing a mitzvah. Now what happened? Now why are we acting not in the path of a mitzvah? Now we're acting wrong. Now we're acting sinful. What happened? The answer is because when you start off with something sincere, you got to make sure that it doesn't become personal. When you start off sincere, that means I'm doing it for Hashem. But such a thing that you want to do can now become very personal. It becomes what I want to do. Yeah, I want to do a mitzvah. It's my mitzvah, so to speak. This is how I want to do it. So now it's not just a mitzvah anymore. It's your thing. It's something personal. And therefore, if things go wrong, you get angry. You start doing the wrong thing. You can start off sincere, but you got to make sure that it doesn't become personal. It doesn't become what I want. Because if it does and things go wrong, then you're not going to be acting sincerely anymore. You're not going to be acting righteously anymore. You may have started off wanting to do a mitzvah and you'll end up doing the wrong thing. That was the lesson of Potiphar's wife. When we start off with the intentions of doing a mitzvah, we have to be on guard to make sure that what we started off as a mitzvah doesn't turn into the wrong thing. When we start off trying to do what's right, let's make sure that let's be on guard. Let's not assume that because we're starting off doing the right thing, we're going to remain that way. But rather to be on guard to make sure that this mitzvah doesn't turn into my thing, to what I want instead of what Hashem wants. If we continue with the focus of doing what Hashem wants and things don't go our way, okay, still got to do what Hashem wants. If we allow this mitzvah we wanted to do become something personal, becomes my thing, what I want, then when things don't go our way, what started off as a mitzvah can become something very wrong. That is the point of bringing together these two stories. You can get together and want to do the right thing. You can be sincere. Don't assume that everything is going to stay that way. Don't assume that it's going to always stay l'shem shamayim. It's going to stay sincere. It's going to stay for the sake of heaven because I started off that way. Make sure that your mitzvah that you're doing for Hashem doesn't become the thing that I want. Because if it becomes what I want, it can now turn it from a mitzvah into something wrong. Have a wonderful evening.